righty. Welcome everyone. People are starting to come in slowly.
Good morning, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm so excited for the lineup today of kind of how to become a foot and ankle surgeon, the podiatrist pathway, and spreading awareness of our profession. And yeah, I'm just really excited about everyone that's going to be with us today. And we're going to start off with someone so special. Dr. Ebonie Vincent is a board-certified podiatrist, originally from Temecula, California. You may recognize her from the TLC show, My Feet Are Killing Me. And Dr. Vincent completed her undergrad at Hampton University in Virginia, a Master's of Biomedical Science at Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine in Philadelphia as well, and Doctor of Podiatric Medicine degree at Des Moines University in Iowa. Dr. Vincent did her 3-year residency program at Inspira Health Network in New Jersey and specializes in minimally invasive surgical techniques, reconstructive foot and ankle surgery, diabetic limb salvage, and pediatric foot conditions. So thank you so much, Dr. Vincent, for joining us. We're so honored to have you as our keynote speaker. So I guess I'll let you take it away, but thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Miko, for inviting me to today. I think these webinars and interest meetings are so important when you are considering what to do for a career, because this is one of the most important decisions that you are going to make throughout your entire life, because that's really going to set the tone for how your whole life is going to be going. And you did, list down my resume, but I will kind of give you a little bit more color to my story in the sense where I didn't know that I wanted to become a doctor of podiatric medicine. This profession sort of found me on my journey, and I'm so glad it did, because my life would definitely not be how it is today. So I did grow up in Temecula, California, which is in Southern California. And I was always an athlete, always a student athlete, wanted to pretty much go to college and play volleyball. And that's exactly what I did, which is why I ended up in Hampton University in Virginia, a complete opposite coast of California. So with that said, your priorities when you're, a younger person, like in high school and trying to get into college, like sports medicine was my priority. Like I wanted to do, I majored in biology. I did 4 years of volleyball at Hampton and really was focused on the sports medicine portion of what I wanted to do. I had no idea exactly what that entailed, but it sounded good to me because I did have 2 torn ACLs. Like that was my journey. I had torn my ACL first playing basketball, rehabbed, then started playing volleyball, got a scholarship, and then tore my ACL again. And so I definitely had a personal connection to my orthopedic physicians, my physical therapists, all of the medical field as it pertained to my personal medical journey. And so that gave me that fire to definitely want to go into the field of sports medicine and help those who were like me. Like I can definitely empathize with the type of fear, feelings, disappointment that you might be feeling when you are out of the game. So that's pretty much what my inspiration was. And so I, matriculated through my undergraduate career with the focus of becoming an orthopedic sports medicine doctor. With that said, my post-baccalaureate program was the perfect position for me to have been into. I wasn't able to matriculate right into medical school after my undergraduate experience, just based off of the credit hours I needed to complete during undergraduate, like my science credits that I wasn't able to complete playing sports. But I encourage, anyone out there, if you're not able to go straight through to medical school, that this is not an issue. Most people don't go straight into medical school right after college. And you're supposed to have a little bit of a journey, and I encourage you to have it, because this way you'll really do some soul searching, and you'll really figure out who you are and what kind of career can really be good for you. So with that said, my master's program, I was able to shadow. I can't drive that home enough. I was able to shadow dermatology, cardiology, sports medicine, family medicine, orthopedics, like you name a specialty, and I was able to go and shadow. And the last person that I eventually shadowed was, in fact, a podiatrist. I had absolutely no idea about the field of podiatry until one day, my aunt, who called, and she works in the emergency medicine department in LA, and she was like, have you ever, shadowed podiatry? She was like, I had to call someone, for a foot and ankle problem the other day, and podiatry was on call as opposed to ortho. And, the podiatrist was just so happy, and they were just so knowledgeable. And she was like, I feel like that's more your personality. Like, have you ever looked into it? And I was like, podiatry, what is that? And she goes, well, look into it. And so I did. I went to a interest meeting while I was at PCOM, and they had an interest meeting at New York College of Podiatric Medicine. And New York at the time was doing great things. They had they bused us from Philadelphia to New York. We went to their school. We did a tour. And honestly, my head was bumped. I went to a big old foot and ankle conference that they had, and there were so many vendors there with orthotics and bracing apparatuses and all these things that I was like, wow, this looks exactly like what I want to do. And so from there on, I definitely went and took advantage of all of their, the list of people that they had available that were ready and willing to have people come and shadow. And so I took a month at a time and did some shadowing in Philadelphia, New Jersey area, and absolutely loved my experience. I will share with you just the moment that I realized that podiatry was for me was when there was a day when I saw a very old person, a very young person. It was all encompassed into just treatment, and people were happy. People could leave the doctor's office having had the beginnings of a treatment and ultimately felt a lot better. And then I realized that the doctor who I was shadowing, he was able to have a full, well-rounded life. He wasn't overtired or overstressed because he was on call the night previously. He was able to have children and a wife, and they were able to vacation. And also he was a business owner. And that was really attractive as well, because it's one of those things where, you don't have to be a private practice owner, but that was something that was definitely attractive to me, because I wanted to be able to pretty much rule my own life. I want to not really have to ask for off or put time in for certain things. If I can work hard and make a great living and also be available for my family, that was ideal. And I just wasn't seeing that in other professions. I was seeing a lot of overworked, kind of stressed out, always on call, not really having the say so over your own scheduling, and a lot of the other medical fields. And when I saw with podiatry, I was like, no, this is definitely something that I could get into. Because another portion to me is that I've always been pretty entrepreneurial, pretty much always having a job. I'm one of those people that, I've always had a job. So you'll never see me not busy, So I thought that being able to have the opportunity to be a business owner, in addition to my passion for the medical field and sports medicine, that was a great combination. So inevitably, I would have never learned about the field of podiatry had I not really had that post-baccalaureate experience. So if you are in high school or if you are in undergrad right now, I would encourage you, if you're not able to go straight into medical school or straight into podiatry school, go to a post-bac program, sign up. There's 1 or 2 years worth of a program. And if you have not done any shadowing, I really encourage you to do the shadowing experience, because it is one of those experiences that you won't know what questions to ask unless you have the experience. So, fast forward, I did go to Des Moines University for podiatry school, and that was a great time. I spent 3 years in the city of Des Moines learning and studying, and then the fourth year traveled to different externships. And that was pretty exciting because that's how you get chosen for your residency programs. And I ended up landing in New Jersey, and that was a whole experience on its own. Residency is definitely a good time. It's a hard time, but a good time. It's one of those necessary evils where you're learning so much in the course of 3 years that you're going to be absolutely 100% prepared to be a full-on surgeon at the end of the day. And that's another thing about the field of podiatry that I loved. I wanted to be the type of doctor that fixed things that I saw broken. Oftentimes in medicine, you're looking at a person who's seemingly maybe not looking too bad. You're like looking pretty good. But based off of lab values, based off of symptoms, you're kind of trying to like chase it with a medication. We definitely do our part with that. We are medically trained to prescribe medications and things of that nature, but I loved being a surgeon. And every podiatrist after the course of your training will be able to do surgery. So that's a large part of my practice today. I do surgeries at least maybe 4 or 5 a week. And my patients, I'm doing a great job with my community and my patient base. So that's something that I really, really love to do and appreciate doing that. But while I was in residency, I did feel the need to branch out and reach out to a community, and that happened to be online on Instagram. And while I was doing that, I would just post once a day about things I've learned, little facts about feet, things that I think that the public should learn about certain health conditions like diabetes, arthritis, plantar fasciitis, things that affect everyone every day. And through that, I ended up gaining quite a following. And so when it was time for me to graduate and start my position as an independent contractor back home in California, I continued with my online presence. And that was pretty much to serve as a communication device for my community. And shortly after, it kind of blew up into this whole television show on the Learning Network. I never really thought that I would be on television for any particular reason, but it is something that I wasn't opposed to, and it turned out to be great. 4 seasons worth of show plus one random COVID episode, and here we are. So yeah, definitely my career has catapulted into something that I honestly could never have dreamed of. At this point in life, I own a practice, so I'm kind of just like my mentor that I saw. We own there's 5 establishments of buildings, and we have 6 doctors, and I'm one of the partners. And a television show and a whole bunch of other small entrepreneurial things now, and now I'm talking to you good folks. So it's definitely become a full circle kind of experience for me. I'm definitely an open book. If you guys have any questions, I'm able to answer them to the best of my ability. But the beautiful thing about podiatry is that there's no one perfect way to go about it. I have friends who are more heavily into the hospital setting, who love the on-call emergency room kind of scenario. And that is exactly, what they like. And so it's one of those things where if you'd like to do that, then you definitely can. So the world is your oyster. So I will open it up to the floor for questions, if you will.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vincent.
You're welcome.
I guess, we might have some questions. But in the meantime, let me ask you, so you talked a little bit about how important shadowing is for an undergraduate student or high school student that might be interested in going into healthcare. Where can someone find a podiatrist to shadow?
So I would say look into your area, look into someone local. I've had people reach out to the office and just simply inquire. I mean, out of the 6 doctors that we have in the different locations, we're always willing to have you come in for a day, look around, pop in with patients and see, if you like it. And the other thing is you want to be able to shadow for more than one day, because some doctors will have like days where they're just doing like palliative care, nail care. Some doctors will have only post-op days where you're only seeing like your patients after surgery. So it kind of is one of those things where, you want to be able to have a full, well-rounded experience. So just don't pick one day to shadow.
Okay, that's good. And I think there's also like stepintopodiatry.com or something that helps
Yeah.
connect with podiatrists. That might be helpful too. But I think I agree with you that I think shadowing for multiple days helps you see a little bit more about what the day-to-day life could look like for a podiatrist. And then my other question is, so since you've been on the TV show, has that changed your patient population at all?
Yeah, it has. There's a lot of people who watched the television show who want to come for crazy things, so that's definitely changed the patient population. Like, I'm not seeing regular pathologies most of the day. Like, most of the times I am, but I have a plethora of patients who come with really strange things that I've never seen before since the show. And now it's, becoming more and more common. So I'm like, oh, I actually have seen that strange thing. So
Wow, that's great. We have a question from one of the participants. They said, can pre-podiatry students shadow the wonderful Dr. Ebonie Vincent?
Yeah, you're always welcome to shadow. I usually do shadowing on Thursdays only in my Orange office. So yeah, you can just set something up with the office. Yeah.
Great. And then another question came in. If we're set on podiatry, should we still shadow other specialties?
Yeah, I think it's always good. I tell people this all the time. When I was in residency, I was like, on my off-service rotations, which means when I wasn't doing podiatry, when I was doing like emergency medicine or vascular or some other specialty, I was always like, yep, made the right choice.
Oh, that's
So,
good.
I would say yes, because here's the thing, like, when you're going through such a rigorous kind of field, at some point you're going to feel like, oh man, I have buyer's remorse, or oh man, this is too hard, So you want to have a full experience in order to be able to say like, no, I'm good, I'm okay with this, So having that shadowing experience from other specialties in the back of your mind, I think is always helpful. And you never know, you might find something that you like more than podiatry. I don't know. So I always just encourage you to make sure that you're making the right decision for yourself, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think even if you don't enjoy the other specialties as much, I feel like it's something you can still take back into your own practice, and the things that you've learned in all the different specialties can make you an even greater doctor.
Exactly.
I agree that I think it's good to still shadow other doctors, other specialties, and learn different aspects of medicine. That's a great question. I also have another question. Like, if you have ever dealt with any like, I guess this is a little harder, so you don't have to answer, but like, if you've ever experienced any like sexism or racism in your workplace, or in your profession as a podiatrist, and how you dealt with that, if you have.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. Podiatry is still largely male dominated. As a Black woman, you do experience a lot of discrimination on your way up, It's one of those things where you don't have to sit there and just take it. It's one of those things where there are appropriate responses to ignorance. And you kind of learn how to deal with that on your on your way. You know, at first it can be a little shocking, and then you'll kind of learn different tactics to say, you know, just kind of check people politely, like, excuse me, I'm not sure if you meant to say that. You know, like we could rephrase and kind of have a better dialogue, you know. But as long as you're not being silent over wrongdoings to you, I think that you can maintain your respect and continue to be professional. I think that a lot of times people say some things out of ignorance or maybe just not knowing that it's bad. I never want to give people a pass, but I always kind of go for the path of least resistance when it comes to trying to educate people as opposed to shaming them. And we can all have a learning experience, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
I can ask the next question from a participant.
Okay.
Thank you again for describing everything. Yeah, I came in a little late, but someone asked, how much sleep deprivation did you endure during residency?
A lot. So yeah, like I said, 3 years you can do. I tell people all this all the time. I'm like, look, residency is challenging. Okay, like you'll be up at 3:30 in the morning doing your rounds in order to be, you know, done before 7 a.m. clinic. You'll be at, you know, there on call at 2 a.m. sometimes. Like it is quite a grind. I know that there has been put in place some laws recently about how many hours that you can do a week for residency. So it might be a little better by the time these students matriculate. But it's one of those things. It's temporary. Okay, I always tell people you can do anything you can do for at least 3 years. So just grind it, endure it, and then you'll come out like a shiny penny on the other side, you know?
Just like they say, as an athlete, pain is only temporary before it leaves the body.
There you go. We used to say, you know, what are you, a pipe or a diamond? Diamonds are built under pressure and pipes burst under pressure. So you got to, which one are you, you know? So you could do it. If I did it, you could do it. And trust me, I love sleep. Sleep is right number one on me. So
Just ask the next question. I'll go ahead. Once someone says, let's see. What is one thing you wish you knew before starting your podiatry journey and before starting medical school? Do you have any advice for first generation pre-podiatry students?
Let's see. One thing I wish I knew before starting podiatry school, maybe just that once you start, it's not gonna stop with the busyness. So if you're not ready for it, like if you're that person who desires to like go, you know, backpacking through Europe for a year or something, like do that before you start podiatry school, because it's gonna be like you're not gonna have time to even think about doing that once you start. So I would say, like, you know, whatever bucket list items that you'd like to do that are going to take some time or travel, I would say do that before you start. And as far as first generation goes, you know, no one in my family is a podiatrist. I do have people in the medical profession in my family, which I do think is helpful. It's one of those things where you are really going to need to have some resources. I know it was tough for a lot of my friends who didn't have a lot of resources when it came to expenses, like you know, flying back home for holidays. You know, that's going to be on you. Like you're probably going to take out a little bit more student loans than your other students in your class, you know. But I would encourage you to do it. You know, you're going to need a lot of family support, and you being on an island by yourself in the middle of nowhere is not good for your mental health, you know? So I definitely think that having that family support, regardless if you're first generation or if you have multiple doctors in your family, you need to have that family support. But those without having, you know, being first generation, it's going to be a little tougher, but just reach out. Mentorship is priceless. I have a lot of mentees who just call, you know, for just a talk, like, hey, I need some encouragement. Hey, here it is. You know, I need some advice. Hey, here it is. You know, just a listening ear of someone who's been through it. Doesn't necessarily have to be your family member. It can be a mentor, someone you trust, you know?
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And kind of going on the theme of support, someone asked if your professors in podiatry school were supportive.
Yeah, I had a really great support system. I was really blessed with that. I didn't know like who was going to pop up and be like my support team, but I had a big blessing with Dr. Yoho. He's now retired from Des Moines University, but he was really instrumental in just making sure he was always encouraging. At Des Moines, we had a multicultural diversity leader, Dr. Salas, who's still there actually. And I thought that that was vital. Like anybody who is a person of color, I think needs to go and establish themselves with their multicultural affairs office. Like there's resources there that you probably don't even know that you need. I think that as students, all of us are a little bit probably type A. We're just kind of, nose in the ground, head in the books. I'm going to just fight through this, but there are other things that you need to kind of mentally check in to make sure that you're okay, that can really help you with your grades, So just having that already like built into the system was definitely helpful for sure.
Okay, we have the next question. I love all these questions. Thank you everybody for asking all these great questions. So talking about great questions, the next person asked, from the students that have shadowed you, what are some good questions or some good topics that they can bring up as a student with podiatrists like you to go over during their shadowing time? Like, what's a good question for students to ask?
I find that the majority of the time, like you're not gonna, as a student who hasn't gone through like the classes like anatomy or anything like that, you're not gonna really know a whole lot of science questions to ask. I kind of volunteer that information and make sure you're like interested enough or just know a little bit more about the field. But oftentimes I think that social questions are the best, like, hey, were you scared going out of state to school? Like, how was that going from California to Philadelphia? That's weird. Like, did you know anybody? Like, how did you make friends? Like, all of those kinds of social questions I feel are absolutely valid, because you are going to have to make a home somewhere totally different, make new friends, new family. Like, I remember my first Thanksgiving in Philadelphia was by myself, and I had Friendsgiving for the first time. I met a bunch of people in my post-bac program. We all like had Thanksgiving, and they're my best friends to this day. So like how to kind of navigate you being by yourself and not having the fear of I have to stay at home in order to succeed. I think that those questions are a little bit more valid because you never know where you're going to get accepted to school. I encourage people to cast a wide net of applications and then go where it fits you most, where you're going to get the most learning. So.
And someone else asked about how challenging was it to get into podiatry school, and how might undergrad prepare for that along their way?
Yeah, so undergrad, you'll definitely need to have your science grades. I'm not really sure what the requirements are right now, but definitely shoot for above a 3.0, 3.2 science GPA. And then your MCAT score. They changed the way that they did the MCAT, so I can't even tell you what score you need at this point, because it changed since when I've done it. But yeah, I think that podiatry schools are looking for a level of diversity in your background. Like, what else besides going to class have you done? Are you a part of leadership? Are you a part of sports? Are you a part of any other kind of extracurricular activity? They're looking for interesting candidates who can relate to people with foot problems. Like, I remember at my interview, I was sitting next to somebody who had hiked Mount Kilimanjaro, and I was like, oh wow, I'm so lame compared to this person. Like, but you know what I'm saying? They have good stories, like a good life experience that will hopefully help them relate to patients. Because at this point, they're not just looking for that person who knows a whole bunch of science who can't talk to anybody. Because most of the time that you're talking to someone, your treatment will depend on your doctor-patient relationship. And if you can't relate to people, then that's kind of a problem,
Definitely. I think like having that life experience outside of school is important to be able to connect with your patients. And so, yeah, I think I totally agree that I think having experiences outside of just undergraduate or high school is important, and having life experience. So yeah, I definitely agree. Someone asked, let's see, has there ever been a time that you found, oh, that was very difficult and you almost kind of gave up or wanted to change your career?
Yeah. As I was saying, I think everyone at some point thinks of these things. I had a bad problem with anxiety when it came to taking my boards. And so I was always that person who had a plan B. I'm like, if I don't pass boards, I'm not taking it again. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So I think I was always that person who had a plan B. Thankfully plan A worked out. And honestly, even if, I didn't pass the first or second or third time, I would have probably still tried. It's one of those things where you're always going to have a level of what if I can't, what if kind of thing. But your positivity definitely needs to outweigh that. And if you're passionate about, the vision of you becoming a podiatrist and doing all the things that you kind of envision, then you'll eventually go ahead and muscle through it, But yeah, there's always that.
I have my boards coming up this July, and I'm like feeling it a little bit, but we'll get through it.
You'll get through it. You're gonna be just fine.
Thank you.
Another attendee asked if you had any advice for ballet dancers, especially in regards to point shoes. So.
Oh, wow. I'm assuming that they're a ballet dancer. Dancers' feet take such a beating, and I've never done ballet before, but I have treated my fair share of dancers. I don't have any advice on how to prevent those kinds of things. Maybe ask a dance coach, but I will say in terms of just like rehabbing your feet, you definitely need to do that every day, like on a daily basis. I would say Epsom salt soaks in warm water, making sure you're bandaging all your cuts, maybe padding in certain areas of the shoes where that you're putting more pressure. Those are the kind of tactics. And then also, you're want to have more supportive shoes on a daily basis. Inserts are always a good idea. Supportive shoes. You don't want to be that person who's always dancing and putting your feet through the ringer and then also wearing bad shoes. It's just a continuous cycle of just bad things for your feet. So definitely get some good inserts, get some good shoes, walk around as supportive as you can, aside from when you're dancing. So
now we have a professional ballet dancer in Miko.
There you go. Yeah. Miko, you tell him what to do.
I mean, I definitely agree with everything that you said. I think wearing support, especially when you're not dancing, wearing supportive shoes, like good sneakers that have arch support is important. And don't ignore pain. When you have pain in your feet, like make sure you listen to your body. And like Dr. Vincent said, to put a bit of cushioning in your point shoes where you tend to get blisters can help with that too. Yeah, there's a lot of things to do to help your feet, but I know it's not easy because I feel like point shoes will never be healthy for your feet ever, but it's just how to manage that in the best way and how to protect your feet so that time and while keeping your feet healthy. So yeah, that's what I would add to that. But yeah, I agree with everything that you said. One person was asking if you had any help with student housing while you were in podiatry school, or did you just kind of find an apartment?
Some people did. I know some people had student housing, but I just kind of found an apartment that was in my budget and went from there. I went to Des Moines University. It's in Iowa, so the price point of rent was way cheap. So that was one of the things. I mean, Iowa's not probably the most attractive state to go to, but like it was great for price wise, So I would have probably needed help if I had gone to one of the Northern California schools or something like that. But you should ask the university if they have any contracts or something with any apartments nearby. I know New York College of Podiatric Medicine has their own like apartments and stuff like that, kind of like dorm style, where you can have a roommate. So that was something I did look into because I was looking to stay on the East Coast at one point. So they actually have that embedded into their program, but you should ask what depending on what school you go to.
Someone asked what was the most difficult question during your interview. I assume they're talking about your interview for podiatry school.
You know, again, I feel like, you know, my anxiety sometimes made me think like things were so much worse than they really were. Because I remember my first question that I got asked was, oh, so tell me about yourself. And I nearly died. I was like, I think I told everything I had on my application. There's nothing else that you don't know. Did you read my application? You know, but but no, I think that like I said, they're looking for if you can communicate and have a personality. And so I eventually came up with, you know, what's not on my resume that I don't really tell people is that I love Broadway musicals. I used to be in show choir. I like to sing. I'm a professional shower singer, you know, something like that to kind of break the ice so that they can try to get to know you. But they didn't, I think that after that question, it was sort of like, okay, so why do you want to be a podiatrist? And then those questions are easy, you know, because at that point you've shadowed, what's the greatest surgery that you've seen? Why did that inspire you to become a doctor? You know, those kinds of questions you're prepared for in a science medical interview. Not tell me about yourself, like, ooh. So
yeah, that question is never easy to like put it all into like 1 minute about everything.
Yeah.
We definitely do ask that at many different like medical school interviews and job interviews too. Just tell me about yourself.
It's the personal questions that were hard. I had someone ask me in my my interviews for residency, if you were a color, what would you be and why? I don't know. Like, I was like, blue, it's my favorite color, and it's peaceful, it's calm, color of water in the sky, you know, like come up with something, you know?
Yeah, I think not for my school I go to now, but I was asked like, what utensil would you be if you could be any utensil? Or
yeah.
What
they always come up with those kind of personal questions first, or I don't know, philosophical questions, if you will, and then the stuff that you studied for them to ask you, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Someone asked, what is your favorite memory from your podiatry school experience and forming relationships with your patients?
Wow, I had so many good memories in Des Moines. I mean, it was such a tight community. I don't know. It just, you know, we would go to this bakery after every test. It was like this little French bakery just to, you know, stuff our face with crepes and stuff after an exam because we felt like, oh, it's the worst day. Might as well add some calories to it, you know. We did see a lot of Broadway plays. There was a lot of plays at the Civic Center. Me and my friends took our time to just go and do some things. Yeah, I had a lot of fun in Des Moines. We used to take little road trips to Chicago for the weekends, and that was fun. And then we just studied a bunch together all the time. So yeah, we had a good time.
We had another question that if you were to restart your DPM journey over again, what would you have done differently?
If I had to started doing my DPM degree over again?
Your whole like journey, they said.
Oh, my whole journey. What would I have done differently? Honestly, at this point, I can't say I would have done anything differently because I don't know if I would have been where I am. You know, I think it's one of those scenarios where you don't know how your life is going to turn out, or what decisions you might have made without the other experiences in life. So yeah, I don't think that I would have regretted doing, or I don't think I would have done anything over, like some people ask me, oh, you don't use your master's degree now, like, do you regret getting it? And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be a practicing surgeon for forever. I might go into teaching and then my master's degree will definitely serve me then, and plus without it, I wouldn't have found the field of podiatry at all. But yeah, I think that my journey was what it's supposed to be like. And a lot of people, when they're in high school or college, they're thinking about a timeline. They're thinking like, oh my gosh, 4 years of podiatry school and 3 years of residency, that's 7 years. Like, what am I supposed to do? When am I supposed to get married? When am I supposed to have kids? When am I supposed to do yada, yada, yada? And, my advice then is like, it's going to happen when it's supposed to happen. I had friends who got married in school, who had babies in residency. And, my journey is such that right now I'm engaged now, and I'm planning on having babies soon, like a little older, never hurt anybody, just stay in shape. But,
and finding the right person is much harder than actually doing it.
Say that again for the people in the back. Oh my gosh. Like you definitely don't want to marry the wrong person just because it's time, because that's a whole different story. I do have friends who are getting divorced on second marriages, so that's not something that you want either.
Yeah, those things like marriage and children is not a check off list. Like,
yeah, it's not.
Sure. Someone says, as a follow-up with the excellent shoe question, I have past plainness. That's what they said. And what do you feel about the rising culture of minimalist barefoot shoes, such as zero shoes?
I think it has its place for certain people who may be in the Olympics or training for running. But honestly, I don't know. Like, we have so much asphalt and concrete and all kinds of harder materials that we're walking on. I think that we do need a level of cushion on our shoes or on our feet. The barefoot running is supposed to help strengthen your muscles and make you walk more upright and normal, like you were barefoot. But I think the concept was when we had more dirt and grass to walk on. And so I don't know if you're doing a disservice to your feet based off of the type of ground that you're exercising on, I think that, when I was growing up playing, well, I never really played soccer, but I was at soccer practice. They used to try and make us run barefoot on the grass, just to strengthen your feet. And I was like, well, it's not so bad. It's not a bad concept, but you're running on grass. Like running with the barefoot feet on the concrete is probably not a great idea.
But this is also the people that play soccer and that run around 7 to 10 miles, not somebody who's just getting off the couch to start a marathon.
Exactly. Those people will be in my office like tomorrow.
Yeah. So I think the whole concept of that was because of that book about the runners in Mexico, the Paramanu. And yes, these people have lived in the mountains and run 5-6 miles a day, and so yes, they can do it because they've developed it, but not somebody who just decided to go for their first run and hasn't built those muscles. But anyway,
right.
We have another question. Someone asked, have you seen a lot of representation of African American men in podiatry?
Unfortunately, not a whole lot. I mean, of the people I'm thinking, I can literally count them on my hands, which is the problem, I feel like African American men their numbers are very low throughout the spectrum of medicine. And we need to get those up because it's only doing a disservice to the community at large. So with that said, there are a lot of focus groups that are paying attention to that and trying to fulfill that need. I'm on several of them, just kind of making sure I'm making the rounds and encouraging people to go into the field, because it's pretty bad when it comes to the diabetic limb salvage in the African American community being so poor. So we just need a lot more people dedicated to the cause of educating and making sure that they have the resources to go and hopefully save a limb and save a life. So thank you for that question. It's definitely needing to be more aware. And you don't have to be African American to want to go and spread the word and the knowledge either. You just have to have the passion to kind of improve communities, you know?
I definitely agree. And one more question from the chat is, how did you mentally prepare for your first surgery? Or was it scary?
Like by myself? So yeah, here's a hard fact. So when you're out of residency and you haven't done well, you've done solo by yourself surgeries, but not without like a supervisor like right here. It is quite intimidating. But in order to get credentialed at the hospital, you have to have 6 proctored cases before you fly on your own. And so you technically aren't on your own your first time around. The 7th time that you're by yourself doing surgery, that's like, okay, here it goes, you know? So at that point you would have gotten a little bit acclimated to things. And honestly, the proctoring scenario, when you go to the hospitals, it's really hands off. They're not scrubbing in with you. They're just kind of like looking over your shoulder like, yep, that looks good, you know? So it does build your confidence. So by the time that you're actually by yourself and no one else is in the room supervising, you at least have the confidence that someone else was like, yep, she's doing a good job. You know?
Definitely. Yeah, I still have not seen my first surgery. Like even in the OR, I've never been in an OR. So hopefully in 3rd year, I'll see a lot more.
Your 3rd year is going to be quite traumatic a little bit. I remember my first time in the OR, they have you do the scrub classes and like you're like this and like you get dressed and then you freeze. You don't know what to do because you're not in charge. And there's a bunch of people in the room who obviously know what to do. And sometimes you're going to get ignored because you're not the focus, the patient's the focus, you know? So my advice to you is to basically don't break sterile, be a fly on the wall, move when asked, and all you're going to really be doing is retracting. You're just going to retract and you just, ask questions like, would you like this end or that end? Do you want it over here, over here? And then just know your anatomy. Like, cause they're going to ask you like, Miko, what's that? And you're going to be like, I think it's a tendon. Just get there somewhere in the vicinity, you know?
Okay. I'll definitely remember that.
Yeah. Just know your anatomy. If they're going to point some stuff out, just at least get whether it's a tendon or a nerve or a muscle.
Okay. I'll do my best.
Yeah.
And then, how did you manage to pay for podiatry school? There's some questions about that, like how did you manage your loans and stuff?
So most people are going to have to take out loans. I did get like a few scholarships, but they were probably going to pay for like one book, you know? It's just expensive. Okay, guys. It's one of those things though, that don't be afraid to take out the loans because eventually you will graduate and all of the debt that you're going to accumulate is good debt. It's not going to prevent you from buying a house or a car, or living your life. It's stuff that bankers will look at and be like, you want some more money to set up a business because you're going to be successful, you know? Like it's not bad debt. I don't know if you guys have the same mindset as I did, but I was always that person that wanted to be debt free and, needed to have all the money and stuff like that. But, someone told me long ago that, billionaires die in debt. Like there's good debt and there's bad debt. We need to start thinking of money differently. And unfortunately, doctors don't have the business savvy or the classes to kind of learn about it. But now, as I'm knee deep in like owning a practice, it is definitely one of those things where I'm like, I'm okay with this, So don't worry about the debt.
Yeah. And do you know any podiatrists that are homeless or that haven't been able to buy a house or any of
No,
those things?
no, I don't know any homeless podiatrists, thankfully.
Yeah, no, I think if you're a first gen and don't understand the whole concept of money, I always tell people that when Google goes and buys a building or builds something, they take out a loan. So if they do it, then but also the concept of most people, if you want to buy a house in California, it's around $500,000 to $600,000, and you're making maybe $80,000 to $100,000. Well, I think the starting salary of a podiatrist in California is about $250,000. So it's an investment. I mean, your education is an investment. It can't be taxed and can't be taken away from you unless you do something like gross negligence, but that's a whole different story.
Right.
I think, yeah, let's just do like maybe one last question. Just from me, I consider you like very successful, but I wanted to ask, what is your personal definition of success?
Honestly, it's going to sound cliche, but happiness. I was literally telling my friend this the other day. She's going through, all of the rigmarole of residency and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? When you're done, go somewhere that makes you happy. Like, I don't care what they're offering for a job, you will thrive anywhere where you're feeling loved. So I think that that's pretty much what I did. That's why I wanted to come back home. I wanted to set up shop and teach people what I've learned throughout the years. And it turned out to be the best idea for my life, and it gained a lot of success. So, I mean, you can have all the money in the world and have all the success in the world, but if you're miserable, like, you're just not living a good, successful life. Like, and I think that happiness is the ultimate portion of success for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think, life is so short. We should enjoy the process and the journey. And I'm trying to remind myself that even in school, sometimes you're always looking forward to the next thing. Like, you're like, oh, like when I first started in community college, and I was like, oh, and once I transferred to a big university, I'll be like happier. And then once I was in university, I was like, once I get into podiatry school or medical school, I'll be happier. And then in med school, it's like you're looking into residencies. But I have to remind myself, like, this process is also really, really exciting. And
yeah, you have to smell the roses. I mean, people say that all the time, and I totally get the sentiment. Like, you want to, once I get this and I'll be done with that, then I'll be happy. Nope, there'll be another challenge, and then you'll have to get that done to be happy, But yeah, you gotta learn to stop and be like, I'm gonna rest in this position. Like, I fought to get here. I'm excited to be here, and I'm doing my thing, So celebrate your small wins for sure.
yeah, even like the exams that we have every day, I'm trying to like enjoy the process, and just one day at a time.
Yeah.
Such a blessing, and I think even just to be able to learn, and that's kind of why I love this career too, is you're constantly learning from your patients and from each other. And I think that keeps us young, is to keep open-minded and learning as we
For sure
go along life. But did we have any last questions? But I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. You answered so many questions, and we appreciate that. Really, really learned a lot. Let's see. Oh yeah, someone says thank you, Dr.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me on. And any other questions, just forward them to me, Miko. You know my contact. So yeah, you guys have a great rest of your day. I know you guys have an awesome lineup ahead. So
thank you, Dr. Vincent.
Right.
Have a great Saturday.
Thank you.
Hi guys, have a good one.